Uganda's journey to a multi-party dispensation, you will agree with me, has been a turbulent ride with so many highs and lows, so many rifts and valleys. We have moved from a single-party state to a movement system, and now, until 2005, after serious contestation, we adopted the multi-party dispensation. Today, as we speak, the Forum for Democratic Change is at war with itself. I mean, there is the Katonga faction, and then there is the Najan and Kumbi, side as well. When you go to the Democratic Party, issues around their agreement with the National Resistance Movement, you come to the Uganda People's Congress, still, bickering internally within these political parties. But also, the general outlook of multi-party dispensation in Uganda continues to be a very blurry line if you're to, care to look at it. And to put all this into perspective, dear viewers, is a panel of immaculate citizens of this country. That is now my honor to introduce to you, and in no particular order, of course, from the extreme left, someone who just returned from hosting the African National Congress Secretariat, who, paid a courtesy visit to the National Resistance Movement. Here in Uganda is its Director for External Relations, retired Major Wichpola. Retired Major, we're happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Greetings, and greetings to our viewers, and also greetings from our comrades from African National Congress of South Africa.
Yeah. So what was the visit about? Was it just a courtesy visit, checking, comparing notes?
Wow. First of all, ANC takes Uganda seriously, and NRM, at a time when South African regime had mounted pressure on the freedom fighters, including having a resolution passed in the UN. All frontline states were bound to expel freedom fighters. Yeah. If you don't, they bombed you, and they bombed several of the frontline states. The South African government had the technology, the planes which could fly all over Africa. So all those frontline states, Angola, Mozambique, all that, feared. Yeah. It is only until Museveni told them that bring those comrades here is when they survived and became a unit again. Even when they came, in the cabinet in State House, Honorable Minister Nek Yon was Minister of Health, and Semugere was Minister of Foreign Affairs, argued in cabinet, it is on record, that chase these people away, Bazungu in South Africa will bomb us. Museveni, in cabinet, was supported by the Kategaya and Kirona Kivijinja, and they held it. So it is only when they are taken to Kaweta for training in thousands to go back and fight. Yeah. So the relationship between ANC and NRM is long, or Uganda for that case. ANC is over 110 years, but NRM is much less than half of that year. But we are the ones who helped them.
So we hosted guerrilla fighters of the liberation struggle against apartheid here in Uganda. Yes. And I think some of them died and they were buried.
Buried there, yes. Their graves are there. Fantastic. So we are so proud that history caught us on the right side, on the side of justice. And we help people to fight for justice, and we achieved it. So they come to explore, not only be buried in history, but to see way forward. So their visit is more forward-looking than backward. But we revise history. Actually gave them copies of 3 passport copies of Ugandan passport, where when Uganda was operationalizing sanction, the black South African was saying sanction South Africa. But people like Reagan in America was saying constructive engagement with South Africa. That if they bring sanction on South Africa, it is the blacks who will suffer. Then the blacks said, but it is us who are saying bring it. So one of the steps Uganda took, or which Uganda had taken and Museveni maintained it, was that our passport would read to all countries in the world except South Africa. So I gave them 3 copies, which they're putting in their museum.
Wow. Fantastic history. And because we shall be comparing our multipartyism to contemporary countries, it's important that we get that context. Next to retired Major is Dr. Sarah Birete. Doctor is the Executive Director of CCG and also a lawyer. Yeah, and also, which is also a lawyer. He likes to mention that. Yes, Doctor, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Moses, and good afternoon, viewers.
All right, we are happy to have you. Next to myself is Joseph Ochieno. Joseph is a congressman with Uganda People's Congress. I don't know if he belongs to the Congress that is led by Honorable Jimmy Akena. I don't know. He will tell us.
He leads his own.
He leads his faction.
He has his own faction. So, Joseph, we are happy to have you.
You're being very cheeky and very unreasonable to me. You know, you want me to keep on rewinding this UPC thing. The last time, but one I was here with you, you introduced me quite appropriately. Today, you don't know what's happening in UPC. Which is laughing, thinking this is one, but I will respond. No, I do not belong to a faction.
I don't know your position, including the court ruling. So
I don't belong to a faction in UPC.
I belong to UPC.
I belong to UPC of Milton Obote, the UPC that built the foundation that Comrade Awich is boasting about, including South Africa. Yes, there are two particular factions. Jimmy Akena does not lead the legal faction. Had it not been under a dictatorship, Jimmy was ruled not leader of the party. I'll keep on saying it in 2020 by a court of appeal. So he's not leader, and he's also occupying Uganda People's Congress headquarters, Uganda House, by force. Court mandated the side of the party that was led by by Olaro Tunu, which eventually went into Walubiri's hands to be the ones to organize fresh elections. Those elections were held. I won them. They played the figures the NRA way. It has not been resolved. The matter's in court, thanks to, in part, the incompetence of the judicial systems under NRA. I've been waiting for a ruling now, coming to 8 months. We had been told that a ruling would be made on the 9th of December. Discussing democracy is a very important point I should make. I normally don't like to want to go into the specifics, including the emphasis about the judiciary and my disappointment with it. But that is what I wait for. I hope that in the event that the ruling is made soon, I have all the evidence. I'm reasonably confident I'll be declared president. But I've also asked for a permanent injunction against Jimmy so that Jimmy can retire and do other things, or decide to reclaim his position with us in the mainstream of the party, and we continue working together. Or he can choose to comfortably go ahead and sit with Betty, his wife, with Museveni on the other side. I'll respect them like I respect many other people who were in UPC and now part of NRA, including Museveni, who was in UPC for 9 months in 1970-71. That said, though, I want to emphasize something that Comrade Awich is saying. I realize that sometimes it's quite generous, because that's why he's my brother. The passport issue was actually a very bold decision made in the 60s by Milton Obote. But he's very proud of it. And it's one of the things that pitted him against the rest of the world, particularly against America and apartheid South Africa. This business of our passports being stamped to that effect, that we had no clear relation with the apartheid South Africa. But it's also the case that the relation with the ANC did not start with the NRA. In fact, Mr. Museveni, for young viewers, supported the PAC, the Radical Pan-Africanist Congress. Those days, he thought that the ANC and UPC were the much more progressive left. But that's slightly neither here nor there. So no, we supported ANC. We worked with Mandela from 1961. They met in London. Long conversations. We committed ourselves to giving them free passports in the 60s to go for training elsewhere, and including some here in Uganda. We gave them money and a huge amount of logistic support. I'm saying UPC, but the point is not about UPC, the point about Uganda, that all of us must be very proud. Our contributions in the 60s and up to even in a means madness time, that it's a matter of principle that we supported anti-apartheid movements. Our last High Commissioner, that's the one I recognize, Shafika Rain, told me in London that they were under instructions, he was particularly under instructions, that anytime leaders of the ANC came, the Mbekis, whatever they wanted, they did not need to get clearance from Kampala. And it was that much. Now, talking about it and looking back to where we are today, it's a pity that the ANC has moved this far in government, with the governance, notwithstanding their challenges. And for us as Uganda, we're still going round and round. Of course, you know that Uganda was given Idi Amin because of the African National Congress. One, because of our commitments to break the Commonwealth in 1979, because of South Africa.
79?
71, sorry. Because of our commitment to South Africa, Namibia, and Zimbabwe, particularly, of course, then with Mozambique and Angola at the time. And so we were given Idi Amin as a result by Anglo-America. We overthrown because of that. Mbeki made that as part of his remarks at his inauguration, that they suffered everything else, including governments being overthrown. The only one that was specifically directly overthrown was the Ugandan government. So we, as Uganda, have contributed hugely to the liberation struggle in South Africa. If only once in a while we could put aside politics and put this holistically together and trace it right from independence today, it should be very good. But that said, the ANC as much good friends of these guys as they're good friends with the people of Uganda. I have personally, and we share decent relationship with them. I can say on camera that in the times when I was heading the external bureau of the party, including my visits, we get cordial relations. And by the way, as a matter of interest, Sarah, they also happen to be the mature experience I've had where I met, even when I was still in exile, where you'll meet ANC diplomats and they will tell you that they will deal with you respectfully at a party level, recognizing whatever formal relationship they had with the NRA regime here in Kampala. And to that, you should give them credit.
All right, fantastic. Doctor, let me just delve much more deeper into this particular conversation. And let us examine the statement that I quote from Dambisa Moyo's book, Dead Age. He says that, African states are not ready for a multi-party dispensation. What we need is a benevolent leader. I don't know. Let us just begin by looking at that statement. What do you make of it? Of course, as you compare it to our current situation in Uganda.
Well, to begin with, is that Africa needs, and Uganda in specific, needs democracy. Democracy, facilitates development through participation, inclusion, protection of rights and freedoms. You cannot have sustainable development without democracy. You cannot. Because how will you make decisions? What choices will you make? Are they in line with the wishes, values, and aspirations of the people? And we can have comparisons. People like, comparing China. China is developing. But the Communist Party, just the other day, we are discussing the question of that term. So there are discussions in the Communist Party. Although it's not something desirable for us to look at. China is beginning to bankroll the concept of human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So even people who used to hide behind China as a reason why countries don't need democracy, they will soon have nowhere to run. There have been 3 international, meetings on human rights hosted by the communist government in China. So, having said that, do we develop better under dictatorships? I even refuse the issue of a young, Africa is a young democracy. I don't buy into that notion because I expect my children, for example, to do better in areas where their age is more favorable than mine, including technology, including being global citizens. I expect to raise a more globally productive children than myself. So the argument, so I cannot even say that I am better than my children because of age. I expect my children to be better than me because of the opportunities they have, because of the exposure they have, because of the kind of education they should get, which is better than mine. So the argument that Africa is a young democracy, therefore we have an open check to kill our fellow citizens, to torture them, to starve them through corruption and poverty, to me is hogwash. A younger country has an opportunity to learn from all the mistakes of the older democracies and perfect their own democracy. Because the older democracies had nowhere to benchmark from. But we are here watching how the world has developed. We should not repeat their mistakes because we are a younger democracy. We should learn from their mistakes and do better as the African continent. So that argument has no merit and place in any democratic discussion. Why am I saying that?
So
Democracy.
is democracy about multipartism? Is it,
I'm coming.
Is there a direct correlation between the two?
I'm coming. Let me come to that.
You should come.
Let me come to that. So the argument that Africa, I mean, what does it take to be a democratic country? We need rule of law and respect for human rights. We need institutions. We need the law and everybody to be treated equally under the law. Mm-hmm. And then the rest follows. So is this rocket science that you first need to see my gray hair at 100 ages to understand the rule of law?
You haven't mentioned multi-party.
I'm coming. Because when you come to civil and political rights, the issue of people, freedom for people to believe, to have a choice of political ideologies to support, to have a choice of how they want to participate in their governance is what brings multipartism. Embracing diversity of political opinions, objectives, and practices is how multipartism comes in. Because what is multipartism? Multipartism is, for example, look at us on the panel. Are we wearing the same color? You're wearing dark blue and black, and you are wearing dark blue. He's wearing gray, and I'm wearing blue and black. He's wearing white and black.
And you're fantastic. You're smart. Very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So the way we are dressed here can equally, represent the political shades in people's minds and choices. So multipartism is about that freedom of different political shades. And we are saying citizens, hello citizens, there's red, there's blue, there's purple, there's orange. What do you want to put on? I will pick my blue, he will pick his white, he will pick his gray. And we should all work in a free environment to pursue our objectives, pursue our wishes and aspirations, and have freedom to compete for power. That is multipartism in simple terms. But
So
when
is your question answered?
Are you a moderator?
Of course, I want to pick from what you're saying.
No. You will have your own opinions. You don't develop opinions out of mine. So
no, but he has every right to interrogate because
with your permission,
he is a fellow panelist.
He should have passed through you.
Okay, Doctor, continue. I will of course give him a chance to.
So I'm trying to simplify multipartism from the academic definitions and the argument that multipartism is imported democracy. Let me come to that argument. Many people argue that democracy was imposed on Africa because it came with colonialism. I am a Pan-Africanist. If you look at the original Pan-Africanist, governance systems that existed, they actually had greater, accommodation for diversity, greater freedoms. They had their own traditional rule of law mechanisms than the hogwash we are treated to through abuse of human rights. In the African democracies, the African traditional systems, you could not carry out kidnaps and torture. Like the trademark of NRM and the UPDF, where they have degenerated. You could not kidnap. You are fellow African. You could not torture. There were punishments that were really riding on abusing human rights, like the way they used to treat girls that got pregnant. Those were really, they were really draconian. But those were punishments. They were not the way we treated each other. So other than, I've never heard of the African situation where, for example, without, the due natural justice, the due process of natural justice, because even a pregnant girl would be questioned by elders. Who made you pregnant? Can they marry you? And when you don't mention, and when the family does not mention, is when, in my side of Western Korea, they would say they are going to make local brew. And they put in that pit that you are going to receive matoke, and they make sure the matoke covers you. The intention was to bury you alive there because you've become a shame to the community. The punishment was draconian. But there was also a process of saying this is the crime. Can your suitor show up? And when your suitor fails to show up is when then you are subjected to that inhuman and degrading punishment. So it wasn't a practice that today you pick up so and so son and they are tortured and there's a drone and there's what. It wasn't a practice out of nowhere. So when people say that other than the leadership being hereditary in most traditional forms, although that was not the case in chiefdoms.
And certainly not in my place.
Yes.
And I reject
chiefdoms had democracy because they would select who is now our representative. So even the argument that there was no democracy, other than the cultural setups that had hereditary leadership, those that had chiefdoms, I saw like Bamasaba, the people in Usoga, they are still maintaining their chiefdoms and they elect their cultural leaders. So that even existed before. So why do we say that the issue of free and fair elections is imported? Angore was a chiefdom before colonial capture through Semeka Kunguru. Angore was, that's why there are problems with the king and kingship in Angore. Because what is the known people's culture was those chiefdoms for the different areas before the Mzungu capture. So even then, the chiefdoms had elections. They had a system of identifying their leaders. So what the argument that, when you say, let's sit down and sort out what is imported. What is this foreign? And if it is foreign, what other foreign things have we embraced? And why do we single out to that? Our form of education, we have embraced it. It's global. Our clothing is global. Even those that wear African, respective African wear, Ghana and whatever, still, it is clothes, it is what? It is still processed. So if we have embraced a global lifestyle in dressing, in health, in the way we speak, we are here communicating in English. Why do we single out one process and say, this is democracy we don't want? Why don't we also refuse here to speak English? We go in our shortcut languages?
Good question. And Richard Major, this is where I bring you in. Multipartism under the NRM regime, we had first a movement system, then after contestation, then we adopted the multi-party dispensation in 2005.
Reluctantly.
But even our constitution still, I think Article 68 or 69 still has the movement system as a mention in our constitution. But if you were to look at the current issues facing the FDC, the DP, and even the UPC, the NRM is mentioned as having an invisible hand in the internal conflicts of these political parties. So the question then is the NRM, or, okay, if I'm to use these words, did you reluctantly embrace multi-party dispensation?
Yeah, forced, yeah.
We did.
Reluctantly, or?
We did.
Forced.
We did. We did. I've been in the NRM since childhood.
NRM.
You see, there was a NEC meeting of NRM in Chankwan. Members like Bidandi Saleh and partly Kategaya argued that if we think movement is good and everybody should be there, what do we do with people like Cecilia Gwal, Ronyarare at that time, who is saying, I don't want NRM. Are you going to force them? So the Chankwan's retreat meeting resolved to have a subcommittee to work out whether or not a way forward. I'm supporting the idea reluctantly because even in that Chankwan's meeting, we still felt movement was good. But then you heard the voices like Bidanda and Kategai were saying, but if it is good and it is good for everybody, how about this one who are saying it is not good? Are you going to force them? So you can see the reluctance. The second stage of reluctance was during the referendum. It was a campaign where the masses were consulted.
The
I, for one,
landmark.
Yes, I, for one, I was with Kakwaza Mutare in campaigning for the movement. And we found it...
Campaigning to maintain the movement.
Yes. And we even told our friends who were in the movement and supporting the multi-party position that if you are in the movement and you like the movement and you are supporting a referendum on multi-party, then why are you wasting time committing suicide? Why don't we change this thing then? Because you are in movement and you are campaigning for multi-party. Me and Kakwaza Mutare, we campaign for movement. And I've said here that our argument was that movement is all-inclusive. If you are wrong, you are wrong. That is why, by then, you could censor a government minister. Sam Kutesa and Jim Wes were censored. You can't do that in a multi-party dispensation. Even if a minister walks naked from City Square to Parliament, we shall say it is opposition who have bewitched it. Iron seats, you have seen iron seats. You can't sanction, impeach anybody. We said movement is good, it is for all of us, you are wrong, you are wrong. People like Attorney General would vote for the impeachment of a minister. You can't do it now. So I am really saying without fear and shame that we did it reluctantly. We still believe that movement is good. Thanks God the Constitution provides for two. So we said, try it out. We knew, among other reasons, that the society is not developed enough. For example, did you know that even in the FDC money that we are going to go in, the issue is not whether or not money was received. The issue is it was not shared properly. But they don't sharing properly. They said was not declared. Said it was not declared.
So where did the money come from?
What kind of multi-party are you going to have where even the political parties go for money from the other? Same thing with the DPs. Can you imagine in the last election, no party was almost capable of fielding a candidate except when they go quietly and get money from NRM. What kind of democracy? Are we being honest? We are saying the society is not... There are things that we're talking of the development of the society in a sense that we are not developed to have multi-party per se. We are saying the structures to support it. That even during campaign, you can't feel a candidate. You can't imagine how FDC ran around to look for a candidate until they ended on a Muriat.
What are the reasons?
Okay. The reasons is that this society is not developed enough to have it.
Why?
In terms of funding, in terms of candidature, in terms of everything. So you see, you are now going to have a election.
Mr. Moderator, with your permission.
Yes. A question?
How does NRM field the candidates and why is it that the FDC does not? Is that a global problem or it's a Ugandan problem?
How does it?
How does, you say FDC, we don't have structures to develop parties. That's why FDC does not field candidates for all positions. Indeed, they don't. But NRM does. So what is it that what's the difference between NRM and FDC? That's the problem.
We are strong. We are organized. We are strong. We are organized.
That is the problem.
You should ask them why they can't do it. Now you're asking me why they can't do it. Am I them? I'm not them. I'm not them. So, but what I'm saying is, you throw the country into a theoretical multi-party. Into a theoretical multi-party, into a legal regime multi-party, and you form party XYZW. And the party XYZW can't act in the rule of the game. And for us, we are not shocked by what is happening. Even before the referendum, we knew that this would be this. And that's why we are saying we better not waste time going there. We better not, we knew this would happen. And therefore we said, let Ugandans try. When they try, and then we shall see. People will again come back and say, ladies and gentlemen, why are we pretending that we want a multi-party when even at night we are going to a stronger party to give us money to look for a candidate?
Money?
So, now, so this is
Major, are you confirming to us that
it's the state versus the people.
that your party
He's
has on
Some
some
money.
occasions given money to.
No, but that is what they are. This is what they are crying. It is them who started National Kumbi. It is them, am I the one saying? It is them who are saying National Kumbi. So now let me dwell on the concept of model of democracy. You ask Sarah whether or not a missing ingredient of multi-party amounts to no democracy.
Yeah.
She kept saying, I'm coming. She never came. She instead went around to define what multi-party is. Your question was small, easy. With your academic and theoretical definition of multi-party, are you saying if it is not there, then there is no democracy? You went ahead, gave the theoretical, the legal definition of multi-party, but you didn't answer what you have defined. If it is not there, is there democracy or not? My answer is, if it is not there, there's democracy. There's still democracy. And that is a question Sarah didn't want to answer. I thank her so much for the elaborate definition of multi-party. She defined well, but she did not answer what you have defined. If it is not there, is there no democracy? So, colleagues, you can have democracy in the observance of rights, in the participation of the people, in the
Strong institutions.
Without multi-party. That is what I'm saying. Without multi-party. So, the other offshoots and the legalities, the wrongs that we all condemn, like corruption, like violations, like all this, we all condemn that. Nobody would want it, even under multi-party or under movement system, which is provided for, as you cited, where the constitution provides that Uganda has two political systems, multi-party and movement. But it says if one is in force, the other one is in abeyance. So those of us who believe in the movement, it is still in abeyance. But we are still going with what the people opted. But they are now seeing it.
Okay, fair enough. Joseph,
Just
interestingly, because, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that the UPC at some point did preside over a single party. So yes, a single party state.
Never.
Never?
Never.
Even in
Never.
After 1967?
Never.
Were there other political parties in Uganda?
Yes.
Were they actively,
and political parties were not banned. And
were they actively
there was abolition of political parties.
Were they actively
political parties have never been abolished in this country.
Reading history from another text.
No, reading history. Maybe I know the kind of historical.
But
no. Let me just.
1967 Constitution abolished political parties, kingdoms.
No.
Yes, it did.
No.
Doctor.
I don't know what you're reading. No. You do not have any specific provision that talks about abolition of political parties. And I'm quite happy to come back, and Comrade Awichi is the one who's at a directorate to come back with those. So political parties were never banned in the 60s. This has all been part of NR propaganda. But look, it's interesting, Comrade Awichi.
The 18 points of Amin also mentioned.
I don't think you were referring to Amin, fine. Yeah, but
18 points Amin gave.
Yes, it just happens that one of the unfortunate things was that by Amin, the time Amin came to power, the head of DP was in prison and under detention actually. And the head of DP obviously had been directly responsible for assassination attempts on the president, which is a fact. And that is the thing. But look, back to Comrade Awichi, he talks about the movement system in abeyance. And I just wonder which movement system in abeyance and which movement political organization is currently in charge. I hope Comrade Awichi is able to respond to us on that.
No, it is political party now in place. So movement is in abeyance.
Is in place.
It is multi-party now in place, so movement is in abeyance.
So you just transferred the movement, which is in abeyance, and started continuing.
Movement system, not movement political organization.
I know Sarah will help me with that. But look, so can I continue on the best what you're saying?
Yeah, sure.
No, it's very unfortunate that we are having this conversation today. I'm just wondering what kind of discussions Comrade Which was having with our friends in the ANC when it comes to the question of democracy, because I'm sure they're just being diplomatic because they're the oldest political party on this continent. It's ironical, isn't it, that when I go around as UPC and talk about the oldest political party since 1952, some people say that we are parties of the past. And even some people in NRA like to use it as a narrative. And they're quite happy to dine and swing with the leaders of the African National Congress. So basically just to emphasize that, look, actually the ages of political parties should not matter. What matters what those political parties and organizations represent. And that you can talk about ANC, you can talk about the Labour Party, you can talk about the Tories, Conservative Party, and others. So it's not about that. Now, in the 60s, which talks about systems in place, we managed to peak at independence from zero. Struggling political parties, including KY that had just been formed, did rather well in Uganda, followed by DP, and then grandly followed by UPC. And all these political parties were hardly 10 years old. And you know what happens? It provided for reemergence of a new nation, built institutions. There's a diversity of polity, at least in the early side of it. And everything else that Sarah was talking about existed. Now, in many of these, as I said, Obote, unlike actually Nkrumah, they're amongst the leaders who did not study even in Europe. So many of these leaders are people who had not even traveled outside the country. Some of them are kingdom leaders who had finished J2 after P7, P6. And these guys were able not only to give and deliver on a new nation, but in many cases built the foundations that NRA actually worked on and killed. The continuous argument that comes from the NRA side that we are not yet ready for pluralism is one that must be rejected in the strongest possible terms. The thing is that NRA and disappointed Comrade Which, seems to be so much entrenched into it, the thought about Mr. Museveni. These guys are closet Marxists, They just don't like political pluralism. Closet Marxists, but who, once they came to the realization that they needed to survive on the back of Bretton Woods institutions, they tasted big money and then started doing Marxism of when it comes to power, you apply Marxist theories, and when it comes to real money from the capitalist pot, you use the state power and excessively abuse it. That really is part of the problem we have in this country. Beyond 1960s administration, we had Idi Amin. Amin came, and Sarah sometimes talk about this. Just declare. Amin came, banned political parties, and ruled. And even amidst Amin's own rule, you knew he banned political parties. You knew he did not believe in this pluralist thing. He delivered whatever the best of what he could, and the bad of what he did, that was Idi Amin. In the short of 1978, as we were preparing to get rid of Idi Amin, and particularly the early part of 79, the Moshi Unity Conference, which brought together different kind of political organizations and leaders and military groups and everything, Ugandans consciously agreed that we needed to return not to a pluralist system, but we're going to have elections, to have a new leader with the mandate of the people, and a multi-party system. Museveni was there. He was a signatory to that meeting. That meeting even gave a specific timeline, Sarah. It said that we will have elections 18 months after the fall of Kampala, whenever that happened. Happened that Kampala fell, I think, within a month or two, which was now April. And the threat was for December. December was actually the last month of that arrangement, December 1980. And by the way, one of the issues that brought the conflicts in around the interim administration, talk about Bidan Desali, who at one time was Obote's recommended from a distance choice for one of the interim leaders between Lule, Be Nice, then the Mwanga, and then the collegiate presidency. These guys had agreed a timeline, Once they came to Kampala, Museveni started changing. Binisa started changing. Museveni went on a tour there was a tour of Southern African leaders, nations that include Museveni and the people like Dr. Piliga and others, members of this commission, members of the interim administration. And apparently, all the leaders, Zambia, Tanzania, Mozambique, Samora Machel was a reluctant believer. He sort of nodded his head in agreement with Museveni, because Museveni said Uganda was not yet ready for pluralism, multipartism. But remember Samora Machel's polity and relative friendship down there. I'm trying to tell you this closet thing. This is just a thing in the DNA of NRA. They just don't believe in these things. You know, so anyway, so elections took place with the reluctance support of NRA. So it's not surprising that once they lost, and of course possibly they did not have the mandate, they didn't have the capacity to organize, and they didn't have anywhere to go and gather money. They couldn't come to UPC, the largest political party, to give them freebies, because we don't steal from the national pocket like they do. So they went, had one seat, DP had its own, and we had the multi-party elections. Now, still sticking to that, the idea that, you know, political parties should struggle. Sarah and I were having a separate conversation elsewhere in a different network. You know, political parties, you know, in the situation in which there is an open freedom and space in terms of exchange of ideas and opinion, you know, I should express my political position. Sarah does, which does, persuade you, persuade our beautiful young camera lady, and then the majority of people decide to pick Sarah. So if Sarah's perspective, the view prevails, that is fine. But beyond that, it's also up to Sarah to find a way of saying that, look, you know, how shall I mobilize resources to be able to sustain my political party? I take you back. In 1980, general elections, I don't know the madness of politics of money. I don't remember, because in Uganda, I don't remember getting a penny. I don't remember seeing salt. I don't remember even taking a UPC poster. In fact, they had all these flags. Ironically, the only flag poster that we took, my late cousin Oloka and I, was cups, UPM cup, you know?
UPM?
Yeah, UPM cup.
Why?
Because we met 3 UPM guys in Agongra town.
And they gave you the cups?
Yeah, they had these cups. And we were going home and we were laughing, myself, my cousin and I, because it was a hot sun, so we wanted to cover ourselves. But my cousin also took, I think, one of the poster flags, you know. And we took it, of course, we reached home and then we threw them away. You see what I'm saying?
So the point being that even from as early as then, the UPM believed that they could, you know, do things that were that appeared a bit commercial.
No, to be fair. That's not the point. To be fair to them.
No, he's saying there was no money element.
There was no money element. There's no material element.
Material element, including.
For them, they're a new party, then they're marketing themselves. Okay. And in our constituency, they had a strong individual in Fox Odoy's brother, who was very charismatic, son of a DP former head teacher, or Fox Odoy's dad, who was then the DP parliamentary candidate. And their other elder son, an engineer, Orach, very UPC, so the family, that's a very interesting family, as it were.
So it was UPC, DP?
UPC, DP, and UPM in their family. So they were the ones there, they're drinking actually on some Sunday afternoon. And so they called us, and then we went and we took these things and we went with it home. So there was no monetary element to it. So NRA monetized politics, NRA dominated, NRA control. But one of the things that NRA did was, yesterday, July the 27th, was exactly 38 years since NRA connived with DP, connived with the section of certain sections of some clerics to use some section of the army to overthrow the government. Once they overthrew the UPC government, they came in thinking that they're going to do this politics of themselves together. NRA manipulated the other side, pushed them, and by January 1986, the others had gone off and NRA took over. From then, they banned political parties. The ban, over a 10-year period, NRA continued consolidating itself, and parties getting weaker and weaker and weaker. The concept of multipartyism was killed. These guys went ahead and sold this idea that, parties are divisive on tribal basis, divisive on religious basis, all of which is true, except for the semblance of the religious element of DP on the basis of in founding in Buganda, but not necessarily that was the core narrative that pushed them. The Catholics in Buganda were generally marginalized, and the kingdom, which was basically a Protestant establishment with a Protestant established nation state, and the king and possibly early leaders of DP did not work together. So that was it. And then, of course, DP sold itself, in your native Acholi, particularly in West Acholi, rather East Acholi, and parts of Kigezi, parts of West Nile. That's been resolved, and part of my own Tororo, among those places where DP took a stronghold based on religion, and parts of actually Ankole, But generally, all these parties, particularly in UPC's case, very diverse political party and organization from independence, and we delivered for all. So this, I would say that by the time now we compelled these guys through, when we won the court case to open up the political spaces, political parties had now become very weak. It's not surprising, therefore, that when we came back, and in UPC's case was we came back and then our president died, other than this, it was not about an element of founder syndrome, but much more about the strong leader element. We went in started struggling, hence you now reach a situation in which UPC is generally weak in many other ways and infiltrated. The rest of the other new political parties are relatively marginal political parties. Our traditional ally DP had sided with the NRA, and by the time Semugere got up in 1996, half his team had already been absorbed in NRA. They're enjoying the spoils from the national pocket.
Actually,
that really is the problem.
That is where I want to bring in Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah, Paul Kawanga Semugere served in the broad-based government of 1986, right?
It was not broad-based, because broad-based you're making sweeping statements, because people will take it like that broad-based means no, it was an NRA thing that had UPC wasn't part of that. Okay. So whatever it is.
Okay. Paul Kawanga Semugere, who was a staunch Democrat at the time, worked together with President Museveni in the same government. So how different is Norbert Mau's cooperation agreement with what Paul Kawanga Semugere did then? What is different about it? Why is Norbert Mao getting all this criticism as if what he has done hasn't been done before? And in any case, what is wrong with political parties cooperating? Because I don't think when you belong to different shades of opinion, it makes you exactly adversaries. So what exactly is wrong with the DP-NRM cooperation agreement? Okay,
I want to comment on one issue that retired Major Wichpola said on the failure, the challenges of parties today. And you were saying NRM is able to, like you were saying, we told you guys, you can't manage this thing, you refuse it. So we are now whipping you. Yes. So NRM, because of the fusion with the state, and the use of unfair use of taxpayers' money, that's how they are able to front candidates. And the unfair use is even captured in the way the Electoral Commission distributes money. The Political Parties and Organizations Act says that when there are no elections, the state will support party based on numerical strength. But at the time of elections, 14B, money will be distributed equally. It has never been implemented. 14B of that, say during elections, money will be distributed equally. It has never been done. Electoral Commission during elections gets 8.9 billion, gives to NRM the balance of the 10 billion, distributes 400 million, 300 million to other parties.
So then how do you define during elections?
The act is clear. When there are no elections, they base on numerical strength. That one is being implemented. Where during elections, money is distributed equally. That is the issue that is not done. Because even during elections, they still follow the numerical strength. So that one is unfair access to taxpayers' money. But also leave only the use of treasury. At least the late governor Mtebile is on record for having said that the 2011 inflation was caused because he allowed the robbery of the treasury, and he will never allow it again, which also some people were not happy with. So even beyond that small money from Electoral Commission, 80% of which goes to NRM, they go ahead and rob the treasury in other means. So that is what is causing, as if NRM is strong and other parties are weak. I am sure the NRM out of power will also be a shadow like the other parties, because they are taking unfair advantage of proximity with the state.
All right.
So if I go to your question
the
of
Democratic Party NRM cooperation,
yes, the time you asked also, Joseph, about the parties. In 1989, there was a crisis with the parties during the declaration of the state of emergency. After that attempted assassination, so parties were not operational because the country was under a state of emergency.
In
1969.
Okay.
So that is the ban they talk about and Obote, that state of emergency. So, but away from that, then you have the 1971 Idi Amin. I still think Idi Amin was honest to say, I'm not going to pretend to be a Democrat.
You realize I was picking your word because I like we sort of emphasize that always. So to interrupt, but it's very important that Amin was honest. This is me. This is what you see. What you get under
what I'm gonna do.
No, we don't like it. Whatever.
But this is what it's gonna be, and it was clear to everybody. There was no parliament. There were no parties. Everybody knew what they were dealing with. Unlike today, when they say, you have free thought directions, then even as civil society, we come to observe elections, you arrest us like chicken thieves, then you pick everybody. Then you wouldn't have civil society on the road to be arrested while observing elections that they are credited to do. So that's why I credit Idi Amin for that honesty. So he did not pretend with Ugandans. So going back to your question of
the Democratic Party,
yes. So after 1986, did we have parties or not?
We had the movement system.
Yes. We went into a movement system, even in the interim, even in the constitution. So constitutionally, whether people wanted or not, parties were limited to the headquarters, and everybody was in the movement by law. Some people said, no, we are not in the movement, but by law, they were in the movement. Sorry about this. By law, everybody was in the movement and working under individual merit. If you wanted to go and associate with the party, for DP, they would go to State Hall. For UPC, you go to Uganda, whatever. Nothing else beyond that. So that was the situation that was prevailing then. So under individual merit, if Paulo Kawang Semogeri, and I think Sevana Kizito and others, Chintu Musoke wasn't informal at DP. There were several others that served in that early days of NRM. Because we were under individual merit by law. We were not under a multiparty dispensation. So I don't know whether you call it a cooperation, whether you call it a defection, like now we say NRM is welcomed into movement by the president. By then I didn't see the president welcoming Kawanga or Sevana Kizito into movement.
Was Honorable Mao welcomed into the NRM?
Yes, in writing by the president. On Saturday.
Retired Major, is Honorable Mao part of the NRM now?
The president is a chairman of NRM.
Is the President General of the Democratic Party.
Honorable Norbert Mao, I welcome you to NRM. That was his first paragraph. Do we need interpretation of that English? I don't think so. So the same did not happen to the red. Sevana Kizito, the red Kawanga Semogeri. Kawanga Semogeri, even when parties were limited to the headquarters, and were legally not operational, he consulted the party, and they had an agreement that individuals can go and serve. So the DP, then, there was no controversy. Like you see today, MPs saying, Mao, return our card, return our flag, stop vulgarizing us. Because the NRM neck, the DP neck, is largely composed of MPs. They've been on record since the issue of the agreement came, And they're still on record demanding that Mao leaves the party. That was never the case. Under Kawanga Semogere and however young I was, I never saw such a drama. I never saw it. You had the likes of Mariam Tagambha and the rest, family serving in DP until later on she crossed over. But she crossed over right and where she crossed. She did not just join a corporation. She defected from DP and joined NRM, which is in her political rights, freedom of association. Yeah, so I don't think that you can compare the two. For me, the crisis comes in when you are legally under multi-party dispensation, and then the president says, or an individual for that matter, because in UPC they have an individual who also happens to be first lady serving on the other side. It's not just the president. So when an individual says, I have gone to serve in party X, but I belong to party Y, what are the conditions? Can you then step down at least from have your membership suspended for that period? When you finish your tour, you come back. For example, if you are President General like Mao, can you step down and say that for this period, like he's crafting himself as a peacemaker, a kind of new messiah for Uganda? Can he then say, for this period I have volunteered as a new political messiah, I will not pursue my duties as president. I am unable. I have taken on a bigger calling because he's trying to proclaim his defection as a bigger calling. So it would be right to say that I have taken on a bigger calling. I wish to step down. I will not finish my term as President General. I am stepping down. Let me first rescue this Uganda. Then I will come back later. That would be an honorable thing
and
to
then
do.
we can receive him more grander, even in Uganda.
Yes, but for a party president, now Mao, you go and sit with NRM. And your MPs are on the opposition side. And you are saying, they are saying, why it is nonsensical.
Retired
If
Major.
you don't mind.
Retired Major. The Honorable Mao was flanked by, I don't know, all the NRM bigwigs, if you may choose to call them. The first vice chairperson was there in Gulu. I mean, all these NRM people were there in Gulu. I don't know. Is there,
How about the DP?
Yes, and equally the DP.
Which ones?
The Secretary General was there. The youth leader was there. I saw him there. So I don't know. Well, it's a bit confusing now. I don't know. Just clarify for us.
Well, I see
You
now
the
two
host.
things. Mao being welcomed in NRM and Mao being a member of NRM.
They're different.
Or sitting on the opposite side with his MPs.
Being welcome in NRM and being a member of NRM. A member of NRM has legalistic interpretation.
Yes.
Being a member implies legally you're a party member, you are registered, you hold a party card, or you are on the registry of the party. Okay, you profess the party, but more so the legalities of how one is a member.
Yes.
So to that extent, I don't know whether he has perfected membership. But being welcome is welcome in the movement. I even take this opportunity to welcome Etienne in NRM.
In the next world. The next world.
So that is a position. Being welcome. The idea here is that NRM wants a broader coalition of forces. Forces that we think can push Uganda forward. They are all welcome. Now, the legality of how that is enforceable can be worked out by lawmakers. But the spirit is we want everybody on board. And that is what NRM has been saying.
Umbrella.
So that now defines Mao being welcome and Mao being a member. So that can be clear. But let me also take this chance to comment on a few things. Now, there's the issue of broad business. You raise it, and rightly so, that NRM at the beginning, when it took over power,
You like that word.
Sarah supported it by saying none of them crossed.
It was individual.
So they went in a broad-based situation. You see, broad-basedness here means somebody professes another party and belongs to another party, but is working with a government that is not his. And by the way, for the record, did you know that when NRM took over, the parties that were party members were the senior ministers, NRM cadres were the junior. All these people, Utafire, Mushega, they were all state ministers.
They needed experience.
The regional ministers, the Semogere,
they needed experience.
This DP of Kabale was called Kitariko. All of them they took the senior position in that broad-based. So I wanted clear
in that arrangement.
It was broad-based. The other comment I wanted to comment is about the issue of raising funds. Sarah is right in the interpretation of the law, in that the law provides we get a proportional representation. Now, this money has not been tested during election. This money, which is coming now through Election Commission, is a recent thing. But the position now
in the last elections, it came
under iPod. Under iPod, there's that agreement. Not that agreement. There's that clarity. Why is it like that? Because during a campaign, the presumption is that all parties are equal. Actually, for us in NRM, we even refrain from our party candidate opening projects. Like there was a time we had a water project in Lira, which was a government project. Museveni had a campaign there, was supposed to open the project. We said, no, you can't. This is a government project, let's refrain from it.
After the decision of court.
We refrain from it. So it is true that that money during campaign, because the presumption is that we are equal, it will be that. So there should be no big problem about it. So the only question you raised substantial, apart from my clearing what I had in mind, was the issue of Mao being welcome, and I think I've replied it.
Yeah.
Being welcome vis-a-vis being
a member of
the welcome, therefore, is not surprising that it came with all the horror. You are saying the first family was there, first vice chairman was there. Professor Kamuntu, my OB of the Great Ntare, was telling me excitedly. I met him in one day in the cabinet. He was there. And Kamuntu was there. So everybody was happy to welcome. Now it is upon Mao now to work out the legality of membership. That is welcome. Like we welcome comrade. Sarah, I don't need to welcome her. Sarah has been in the movement. Do I need to welcome?
Which one? I was in the one of
so,
individual merits.
We can look into the detail of welcome vis-a-vis membership.
Okay. Thank you. We are due for a short commercial break, and Joseph, I will begin with you after the break.
All right.
Kindly, please. Thank you. Let's take a short commercial break and see you after this.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
We'll be back from that short commercial break. Joseph, as we look at the Democratic Party internally, is that, yes, whereas political parties are public institutions, and of course the law of contract provides for freedom of contract, you're free to enter into any agreement. But I don't know if we have public institutions like political parties.
As long as there's no contract of illegality.
Yes, yes. If you have public institutions like political parties beginning to enter contracts with other political parties, whereas there might be no detriment per se, I don't know, what does this mean for our multi-party dispensation? That's one. Two, but also I know you have comments regarding what Major said earlier.
Yeah, I think on the question of the contract, and I hope I'll come back to it if I don't lose my train of thought. I'm not quite sure whether it's really the issue. I think Sarah partly insinuated that if political parties and organizations decide at any stage, but usually it's after elections, that they want to have a working arrangement with the other, it's absolutely fine. The issues are clear, put on the table. Normally the leadership put it across, but they will have been mandated by their membership. And that is absolutely fine. There should be no problem. In fact, for me, I actually believe that the more parties are able to cooperate and openly have conversations, the more the mature sense of leadership they will show, and perhaps the better for perhaps struggling nations in Africa that which would like to claim that they're not mature democratically. But it's actually not from Comrade Rich. I basically want to compliment part of what Sarah was saying, but see, both of them have insinuated, including Comrade Rich, during break. And that is the question of Mao. For the record, Museveni wanted to take Cecile Ugwal with UPC in 1985-86, thereabout. No, Cecile Ugwal. Actually, that's how Rwanyarere, who was the vice chairman, deputy to Cecilia, when Cecilia was actually dismissed from the office of the chairperson of the Presidential Police Commission, Museveni wanted to have Cecilia, and she was the possibly first vice president. And when Cecilia failed to deliver on that deal, which she needed to do formally and with Milton Obote in Zambia, and once that failed, Cecilia came back empty-handed, very furious, and Obote was very disappointed rather, and I'm told Museveni was furious. He thought Cecilia was going to deliver, and then Kazibe got that position. Now, what is it? In 1995-96, leading to those elections, which was the no-party elections, the issue was that what do we do for parliamentary elections? It was a major internal conversation that I think is worth having as part of the democratic processes. That political parties have been banned, elections are taking place, party members want to participate in the elections. In fact, the Sicilians, although they had the other underhand agenda, were saying that, look, we shall lose ground. What do we do to our members, our people who want to participate in these things, and we want to consolidate and control our grounds from these NRA guys. Obote said, and it was a written directive, that as a political party, that believes in the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, including through their conscience, we cannot hold back people, who upon their conscience choose to do so. And so therefore made a directive that any member of Uganda People's Congress, now 1996 elections, who upon their free will wish to participate under the circumstances that on a personal merit basis, they're free to do so, except if they're members of the secretariat staff and or elected leaders of the party, in this case, if a party president and people who hold positions like elected or appointed, like Cecilia Ugwal, who was appointed, they should first resign their positions.
In the other party.
You simply resign those positions.
And go.
Do you know what? That was such a major thing. We have learned from the best. Can you imagine? And it was a landmark thing, and it had brought contradictions, that brought international warfare. Tiburondo would say that's one of those master strokes. So the thing came, and it sorted out all the problems. So you got members of UPC who were free to go and participate in these things, but on their individual merit.
And after resignation.
But yeah. So those ones who hold positions, his secretariat staff, your purpose has a branch chairperson, all the positions that you did before, you let go. And then these guys were members of the Presidential Police Commission with Cecilia Ugwal. Now, Cecilia Ugwal was the chairman of the Presidential Police Commission. Do you know what? Cecilia wanted to go with that position by standing for parliament in Lira municipality. And then she started saying, I did not see the letter, and made arguments. So she wanted to stand for parliament as leader of UPC, and then the rest of Museveni's friends. In fact, this was being pushed from the West plus Museveni. That UPC officially participated.
We have to
Western
Western Uganda.
No, Western. Okay. No, the West Anglo-America.
Okay.
Western Uganda is fine. So no. So Cecilia, with Museveni, wanted to drag the party the Mao way, the dilemma thing we have, the Akena way now, and so that is how she was dismissed. I was a party to this conversation, to very difficult conversations, and then eventually Obote dismissed her, and she went on to stand for parliament. What has been said that, Obote didn't want her to stand for parliament, and that it was no, it was simply because Cecilia wanted to have it both ways, but for Mr. Museveni. So maybe nobody will be feeling very happy that it's not new with him, but actually that's the fact. So that's what you do. Fast forward to where we are at the moment.
So just
but she never crossed over. She never.
No, she didn't, because at the time it was difficult for her, and of course she wanted the big thing,
Okay,
sorry.
just as we attempt to wrap up with the DP, is that the Honorable Mao is trying to convene members of other political parties to a sort of a meeting or something.
On what?
On it is termed what, reconciliation. I'm not sure, but something around that. I don't know. How do you receive that as a member of the UPC?
Let him first reconcile
That-
his party.
that-
National
Sorry,
reconciliation.
I've answered
No, yes,
somebody's
he does.
question.
Yes.
So-
Charity
would
starts at home.
Yeah, let nobody sort out DP. We see how they reconcile properly.
With the
And then we
chaos in
learn
DP.
lessons, and then we shall come
has no
embracing
moral
and
authority.
caressing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let him do that. On the broader
With
scheme
the
of
chaos
things,
in DP, has no moral
we
authority.
don't know what mandate, but at the moment we now don't know what object. If part of the deal may be an underlying thing, an underhand thing, to try and give a soft landing for a permanent NRA establishment across the Republic of Uganda, we reject that. For me, I reject that. But an open national conversation, we all want it. We want a conversation around national reconciliation.
Does it matter who convenes that particular engagement?
Oh,
If
it
is
does.
Mao,
Don't you see how Museveni, even one time in Juba, he had to claim he was not a party, was not interested in it? You know, it's a big thing like that must be provided and directed by the leadership of this country. In this case, Mr. Museveni ought, unless he comes out very clearly about it. Otherwise, we're just going to be wasting taxpayers' money. I know some people use these spaces to sort out their CVs for a post-Museveni Uganda. But I think that is very unfair to the people of Uganda consider the message in which you've gone. But I know Sarah wants to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if Chairman Mao could step down from DP and say, I am a political messiah, I'm going to preside over reconciliation, I'm going to preside over constitutional reforms, this is the purpose I've joined, I'm going to preside over dialogue, this is the reason I've gone to work with the government. But so for this time, I'm stepping down. DP find an acting president.
Yeah.
We would all embrace Mao's agenda. But in this kind of shabbiness, he's conducting that thing, nobody will believe him.
Okay, let's just shift gears to the Forum for Democratic Change. I don't know. The past 2 weeks has been FDC. Doctor, what do you make of what is happening? Najana Nkumbi having goons there. I mean, the NRM has over time been accused of being the violent and all this, but then
No, they've been.
no, but then how do you explain what other political parties?
Actually, what we've discussed.
So the FDC.
Yes, what we've just discussed is what has created the ground for chaos in FDC. President Museveni has a checklist. I have finished UPC. I have finished DP. Who is next? FDC. And now he's dealing with them. He's dealing with them.
How?
So
I
he's
don't know how.
no, he dangles money.
Which told you?
He dangles
Very
money.
generously.
he dangles money, and President Museveni's kind of money and how the purpose start up political parties. He doesn't induce or convince people to join him. He wants either you come with your party or you cause chaos that fractures the party or scatters the party apart. So if they can't join me, it's like the other woman in the Bible who wanted to steal after the death of the baby, who wanted to steal the other colleague's baby. And said the live one is mine, you take the dead one, and then when King Solomon said, okay, let's cut the baby. And the other one who was telling lies said yes, because she had nothing to lose. So President Museveni is like, if you can't deliver the party to me, then let it break up.
So in this case, who had to send the party to him? Who had to do that delivery?
Yes, and he has, I have a colleague who likes saying, President Museveni is always straightforward. He says the truth, but Ugandans prefer to second guess him. In his recent writings, he has named people he collaborates with. Said, I have Paulo Kawanga Semogere, I have Sebugwao, I have who is the other one, Norbert Mao. You should bring your parties to me. He has written it down. So it doesn't even need guesswork. That is his methodology. So if I am talking to Sergwao, if you can't bring FDC, like he has put it in his own tweet, if you are not bringing FDC to me, then break it up so that it is ungovernable. If Nopat Mao, you are not bringing DP to me, you, Honorable Mbite, Honorable Siranda, then break it up. And indeed now you have these three on one side, you have all the MPs on the other. So DP is ungovernable. Then now, next, so he's thinking, UPC done, ungovernable. DP
and if you
done,
don't mind, just
ungovernable. So next is FDC.
I don't know, but Doctor, if you look at the credibility of the leaders of the FDC, at least they've achieved some level of public, at least. You'd expect them to know better that, you know, when these traps are being laid, like you claim, then we should not fall for these traps. Because we are talking of people like Dr. Kiza Besigye, Nandala Mafabi, people who have, you know, experienced all these. So should we have expected them to, in fact, act better?
Should I refer you to another public secretary of President Museveni? His thesis at Dar es Salaam University. How you use the theory, Fanon theory. Yeah. He said, make sure a few intellectuals are comfortable and they will support you because they have protected their riches. And then it will be easy to confuse the others that have no monetary muscle. It is written down. That's why I said that for President Museveni, let's stop second guessing it. He always says he thinks straightforward. He wrote it. And he went and is enforcing it. Now, so why don't people predict the money? People are poor. At what time, at what point? You know, even in the laws of power, they say meet your enemies at their points of need. They are weakest. So you have FDC looking for money for campaigns. First, they were struggling to get a candidate. So you get a candidate, you don't have a funding strategy. The parties are the weakest. So you push through a call, Nandara, I have some money here. You come and pick it. They are to their weakest. They need the money. They don't have fuel to go to the people. They correct it. So he's enforcing all of that using the laws of power. The 48 laws of power. That's the time they picked the money. And they were to their weakest.
And if you don't mind, I just wanted to do something before I lose an important point which is linked to this on the UPC case. In 1995, 96, Sarah, the issue was that Cecilia joins with the UPC, meaning Cecilia, although Body was in exile, Cecilia joins as chairman of the Presidential Policy Commission. Now, what saved us at the time was because Cecilia's position was appointed and Obote was still alive. So once
if it was elective, it would have been problematic.
Precisely. And then at the time, you know, the issue was Cecilia still went ahead and stood for parliament because, of course, you no longer hold an elected position or an appointed position or not a member of the Secretariat of Staff. So she went ahead for parliament. But she wanted to go to parliament as chairperson of the Presidential Policy Commission. So that was cut off. Now, that is the dilemma that now FDC faces, DP faces.
You can't fire them.
Unfortunately, you could say elements of UPC. Thankfully, Akena is not president, but Akena is occupying Uganda House. You know, but hopefully, as I said, you know, if we have a favorable ruling, that basically, removes him from Uganda House and from the leadership of the party, it will deal with that in a bit. But Sarah has also warned you that, and we know that Museveni does this, and then maybe he's busy building Plan B. But also, as citizens of Uganda, particularly young Ugandans, we're also saying that we are also looking and watching that we want to be prepared for a post this round. You know, you young guys, you need to prepare for post this round. Now that Sarah has told you, and you need to read Museveni's papers.
Of course, I hope Nupu is watching.
Of Dar es Salaam.
I mean, if there are all these examples of, FDC, NUP, rather UPC, then you look at DP, then shouldn't FDC have been better prepared is the question. But also, retired Major, my question then is that in all this FDC confusion, the NRM is not being, left out of it. You're being mentioned continuously, either, through back channel means or things like that. So I don't know what is NRM's involvement in the chaos.
But how are they being mentioned? You see, we have a situation of saying, like in Uganda, omugaga yaga kutwala omukazi wange. You have a rich man trying to seduce somebody's wife. So, and they are not even responding. It's not their business.
So I think, but
so
still, retired major, the NRM is being mentioned almost all the time.
I think the
this FDC
mention
record.
in hearsay here is that FDC, especially the spokesperson, seems to say that money was got. He implies, he has not come express it, implies that money was got from us. And he says, as I said earlier, he doesn't say it was wrong, but he says it was not shared properly. But he puts it that it was not declared. That it was not declared, the source was not declared. On the other hand, they are also, because you're talking of mentioning NRM, on the other hand, the other party also claims he himself, the spokesperson, has also got money from us. We have not, yes, Nandala says this first mentioned these constant trips, which was in one way.
That's Parliament. Is Parliament your money?
No. You also mentioned the other one. You also mentioned that you are not as clean. You also got money. You also mentioned, maybe you want me to quote them.
Was it just a blackmail or he actually...
We don't know whether it is blackmail, there's counter-accusation. So I wanted to reinforce your position that true, there's mention of our names, and to that extent. But also that our party chairman or our party has not come us with a position to say that we have given. But we think that he who alleges has the burden to prove. We have not alleged you have given money. Somebody has alleged money was given. So, in law and in normal functioning society, therefore, he who alleges has the burden of proof. So they can't allege that we have given money and we go ahead to prove that we have not given or we have given. So those who are alleging should go ahead and prove. So that is how it works.
So about the violence at Najanankumbi, you know, looking at those goons beating up media and all these things.
NRM cannot do that. The best that we can do is to offer police protection, because the duty of police is to maintain law and order. Police is supposed to make sure that if people are going to the garden, they go and dig peacefully. If they are going to Anjenua, they dance peacefully. If they are going to church, they go to church peacefully. If they're in Najanankumbi, they're in Najanankumbi peacefully. So the only thing we can do as a government is to provide police, but goons we can't. We are a very democratic organization.
I mean, what do you make of one faction like the chairman of FDC accusing Nandala of hiring goons at their party secretariat? I don't know. Is this how far we have gone as?
That is unfortunate. If that is how they do it, that is very unfortunate. We would do similar, we believe in a situation like that. For example, if you have youth during campaign and they want money, like they believe that money is in that room, they have not distributed to us, you can have that kind of confusion. It happens because youth have hot blood and they are unruly. But now it's not the case. Here is just a situation of confusion. Youth can do it. If you're in a party headquarters and you don't give the money and they suspect money is in that room, they can bring confusion. So this one is unfortunate. And that is what we are talking about, the immaturity that leads to lack of capability. And that we have seen, those of us who campaigned during referendum, we saw that it would come to that organization of goons, that immaturity where there's violence even inside the party. We had seen it, and some of us had said we wait a little longer. Now,
do you concede that the presence of goons is a manifestation of absence of law and order? How do these goons find their way around, and how do those incidents happen?
It depends on the internal organization of a particular unit. If the unit is a village...
Are police investigating this incident?
I don't know whether they have brought a complaint. Always police move on the presumption that somebody has lodged a complaint.
They
if a
can also
complaint,
move on
if a
that.
complaint
They
was
can
not
also
in the will,
invite themselves.
They can invite themselves,
In a
especially
matter of
because
public interest.
public interest, including
but-
how the media had presented this.
but I want to say this about FDC challenges and NRM.
Yeah, true. He asked a question that is the police investigating this matter, because at least we saw that private citizens were injured in that fracas. So shouldn't the state have been present to quell such kind of violence?
I have
And
said that police investigates on two grounds, of course, as Sarah says. The first ground is when there's a complaint. The second ground is moving on emotion of its own. Now, this is a matter of fact. I need to find out if there's investigation. I can't answer for now. So I need to find out.
Fair enough.
Now, but for us as a party, we are desirous of mobilizing as much as possible and winning everybody. So we are not shy and ashamed of saying our mobilization is ongoing.
Fishing.
Even at the grassroots and at all levels, we want as many as possible. So if our mobilization challenges a weak UPC, challenges a weak DP, so we have scored victory, but we are mobilizing in a lawful and legitimate way. So we are going ahead to mobilize, and you are yet to see many coming. And it is our legitimate right, but we are doing it legally within the confines of the Constitution, within the confines of the law. And we are using legitimate funds. Sarah referred to money many times. The one given through Election Commission and the one we raise as members. We don't believe that we use taxpayers' money. No, we don't.
You don't.
So within the resources that we can mobilize, we are going to fish as many as possible. And all of you here, stand on. We are coming for you. Legitimately, within the confines of the Constitution, we shall persuade you and make you see light, and you come.
Okay, Joseph, just to borrow his words, a weak UPC. So what is the environment like for political parties to grow and to do their work in Uganda?
It is terrible. If only the witches could translate the burden of responsibility that they have. UPC is as weak as the NRA would attempt to put it across. And is as weak as the NRA would try and feed the negative energies they apply. For instance, had it been the weakness of the judiciary, Jim McKenna's appeal against Jim McKenna, which was filed in January 2016, for you guys who went to the bush beating up people for nothing, that matter should have been disposed of within 2016. It made the party run for 4 years headlessly without a leader. The ruling only came by as a result of partly my intervention in 2020, July. And this then that led to the ruling of September 2020 that Jimmy had not been elected. It means, therefore, that from really 2015 to 2025 years, one parliamentary term, the party had no legitimate leader. And as I said, the legitimate leader was the person who was occupying the Uganda House. Despite that ruling, very definitive in 2020, today the Electoral Commission, which we believe is working in connivance with NRA, continues to support and recognize, ironically, Jimmy's side of the party, not so-called the Walubiri side. I am a witness, but I don't want to make it in a personal way, that as I said, I filed a judicial review, and the three of you are lawyers, in March 2021. I am still waiting for this matter to be sorted out. Now, this is not about me, and it's not about UPC. So if it's actually part of a national judicial system that which boasts about, it's actually a shame that it should be, the matter should take 3 years, something that should have taken 6 months at the very most. As I said at the beginning of this program, we were assured of getting a definitive ruling on December 9th, and it's now 8 months. Now, that is something that we believe is being done almost certainly deliberately, pushed by NRA systems and used by NRA to weaken political parties and organizations. It means, therefore, that people like me, who don't believe in throwing stones, who don't believe in going to the bush, who don't believe in breaking people's necks, who don't believe in goons, and we spend nearly half of our lifetimes trying to want to do things through civility. We are as much victims as the majority of Ugandans, and because people like me and Sarah, who represent constituencies that constitute the majority of the people of this country, it means that the citizens of this country are facing erosion. So political parties actually, in many cases, people see these things as instruments of DP, FDC, NUP. No, these are basically the established forces, including NR, in fact, if they're democratic and if they're mandated. Political forces, the vehicles for the vessels by which people express their free wills. And they're very, 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 very much important part of rather, you call it the most basic tenets of the rights and the wills of people to freely associate and express themselves and determine how their destinies are governed through, in a democratic space, and that does not exist. So unfortunately, NRA has done that. But also on the other, you've seen spaces times when which has to say this, political parties want to organize and hold public meetings, and the interventions that the police and other security agencies apply. You've seen this happening in other political organizations, particularly NUP in the more recent times. It basically means that political parties cannot vibrantly organize and grow and as such.
But how far is that? Because the FDC is having countrywide elections from the grassroots level. They held a recent conference at, I think, Sunday Sharing Hall, uninterrupted by security.
Do you know how many times NUP leader in the last 12 months has been held back on some of his meetings, and have been
He was
held
in
back around the
Jinja
country
2 weeks ago to unveil.
that's fair enough, but prior to that, because you're asking about political parties generally and some of the challenges, and I'm trying to tell you in a very holistic way, rather than you can pick individual examples here. But no, quite clearly, we really don't have the space and the spaces to be able to do so. And yet, that's being said, I also would want to say this, that we also have responsibility and hold responsibility, Sarah, political party leaders. Many of us are extremely selfish. Many of us are very inward looking, even within political organizations. And many of us are really very much about our personal merits and some of our interests, rather than representing the interests of the political organizations that we represent, and granted in a way. But also at the same time, I'm not quite sure whether opposition political parties are doing enough amongst themselves to have some of these conversations that we're having, so that maybe we're able to build consensus, build and work around strategies around which we're able to grow and basically to challenge the other side. That, if we're doing so, and if we had clear leadership, and in the event that I'm leader of Uganda People's Congress, I would be able to be the extending hands to all my colleagues, including in a very exemplary manner. And those extension of hands would also include sensible people in NRA with whom we want to and we need to have this conversation, so that we're able to show that whatever we stand for and whatever we represent and whatever the interests that we're pushing for are interests not only for ourselves, but for all the citizens of this country, and that whatever we are doing, we're not doing again for the limitations of our own groupings, including possibly even your age, but maybe more for your children and children's children.
All right, fair enough. Doctor, if you look at the NUP, take away Honorable Bobby Wine, and NUP would really, in my view, I think would really struggle. I think NRM as well, take away President Museveni, it will really, find challenges here and there. Do you think what FDC needs is Dr. Kizza Besigye getting back into all this and trying to sort things out? Is that one-man syndrome also affecting parties like FDC?
Well, you're trying to describe parties as if they must mobilize around a strong personality. But before I come to that, as Joseph was submitting, I remember the constant reminder by President Museveni that he's a gorilla.
He's
A gorilla war leader, and he uses the gorilla war tactics.
Yes.
And I think that is another element of truth on his methods of work. So if you are using guerrilla tactics against Because parties are
innocent half priests like me.
You know, political parties are vehicles for citizens' participation, for competition for power in a democracy. And I'm here, I want to be life president, and because I've just remembered my favorite book, The Art of War. And I'm here, I have my rule book, and the President Museveni's rule book is Guerrilla War Tactics. And he's looking at these vehicles for competition for power that he doesn't want to leave at any moment in his lifetime. So he's looking at UPC and say, where do I strike as a guerrilla? And he strikes and it hits. He has a precedent. He aims at the DP, he strikes and it hits. Mao is another precedent. Now let me go to FDC. And he has thrown his stick there. And everybody is dancing around it. So as a gorilla, you must be watching and say, they are coming along. Are you
in this description justifying the smart political individual?
I'm looking at the toxic political environment we have in the country and the major actor who uses the pillars of the state to strike his opponents. So that's what I'm describing. Because we have arms of government, but we also have pillars of the state. In our case, all pillars of the state, the army, the police, the electoral commission, the treasury, have all been whipped to support the life presidency. So the pillars of the state are under capture. They are not serving the people. They are serving the president and the ruling party. So he is looking here and say, I've finished the number 1 and 2. Number 3. Now FDC is struggling, and we spent 2 weeks discussing the FDC bullet that was shot using guerrilla war tactics through money bags. And FDC is dancing around, and you have the chairman Virgwa, he goes to, give direction to the country, he's held hostage, and then you say, oh, retired ambassador jumping over, struggling to climb a fence, And this is the crisis. It sounds laughable, but this is the crisis we are in. And it is painful. I saw the same ambassador yesterday saying, I wish to ask the Secretary General to take over the Kanyamaz. And it's really Nandara. Nandara, even if you captured the gorilla shot of the money bags, please. It is so embarrassing and painful to have the centers of citizen participation as they compete for power destroyed in this manner, which we can easily laugh at. And it is right to laugh. Ambassador Abirgo himself said whoever was calling him that evening was saying sorry, but then he followed with the laughter. Of course, when it is
it's laughable.
Yes, but it is unfortunate that we have this distorted democracy where you say, okay, these people refused to work under the movement system. Because even the way we returned, and that's where it started from, the reluctant manner to which we returned to multi-party dispensation. First was in the process itself. Do we allow those who want to go around return to their parties to go? I still believe, if it wasn't for a question of limitations, I still believe that this question can be set aside by the Constitutional Court. But because our laws operate on the issue of limitations, the time we started the Center for Constitutional Governance, the 10 years have passed for challenging that referendum. So, can we allow? So who are you, first of all, to allow? That is where the fault lines begin.
The people of Uganda.
No, wait.
We, the people
you
of
will
Uganda.
Answer.
Can we allow?
Can we? And who is reading that flag?
We, the people of Uganda.
Can we allow those who want to go back to their parties to go? So who are the we?
Ugandans.
In that question. Afande will answer. So who are the others that you are allowing? Are they Aryan?
Some Ugandans.
Are they Aryan? I know we have a musician, Aryan skin. But are they Aryan?
Some Ugandans.
Do you see? That is where the fault lines begin. The manner. Saying that for us we are a state, we have captured the pillars of the state, let's allow, assuming even that power, that you have power to allow the others, which you don't have. So that's that's what builds into. So you have a situation of we versus them. And you must ensure that the them are the minority. And that's where all these money tricks play in. But also we have a toxic legal regime. The Public Order Management Act, the way it's enforced on parties, it is a choose and play. Even the Attorney General is on record to have told the police to ignore the constitutional court decisions. Imagine that level of degeneration and breakdown of rule of law, that you have an Attorney General saying, I will write to court against the court ruling. Is the court ruling challenged by a letter?
Is that the Mwanga Chipumbi case?
No, the decision about POMA. There are two decisions about POMA. One outlawing Section 6.
I think, yes.
No, the one outlawing Section 6 was by NGOs.
Okay.
NGOs, and the other one outlawing Section 3, 5, and 7. So we have 4 sections of Public Order Management Act set aside, but the position of the Chief Government Advisor is that no, implement the law, I will write to court. As if you set aside a court decision with a letter. That is the abuse. And indeed the law is implemented fully in total obedience of the constitutional court rulings. That is the situation that political parties are, and it's very absurd. So whatever is happening is not really surprising. It was bound to happen.
Retired Major, the environment that political parties operate in, does it allow for them to mushroom and grow organically?
The situation is all right. The situation is
the way you wanted it.
The laws are in place.
Everything is in order.
Right from the grand norm, the Constitution grants that, and then the other relevant legislations. But on the question of the POMA, we had a situation where the National Security Council, which is Article 219, the highest security body, which includes all heads of security organizations, the Prime Minister summoned them for a kind of a workshop for the Attorney General to take them through the law, because the feeling was that they were interpreting the law in favor of the ruling party. So the idea was to make them impartial and please understand this law. So the National Security Council was taken in a whole day. I don't remember the date, but a whole day to assure them on this law and tell them to abide by the law. So I'm surprised that Sarah is saying this, but we told them, maybe before sending, but we told them to be impartial and understand what the law provides. The other thing is, my comment about Sarah seems to have issues with the formulation of the question in the referendum, whether it is we versus those who are getting out. I think it is Ugandans who were talking. Referendum, by definition, is a decision, is a process of holding a decision on a contentious matters by Ugandans. So the person who is talking here should not disturb Sarah. It is Ugandans who are saying, we Ugandans, we believe, we Ugandans, we have two systems. Now, which one do we want? And now the question was formulated.
I wish it was as simple as that. So, say, do you want to stay in the movement or you want to return to parties? That is the question Electoral Commission formulated. And it was rejected by NRM. Because they wanted to manipulate the masses.
So what was the question?
The original question by Electoral Commission was, do you want to stay in the movement system or you want to return to multipartyism? Government said no. So then the question that
was posed,
yes,
eventually.
Do we want those who want to go and form their own parties? I know the way you are shocked.
I don't remember the question.
Shocking. You can check on record.
But I know that was the debate.
Do we want those who want to go and form their own parties to go? That was the question.
I don't think.
I can assure you.
You can check later. I don't think.
I am
but
sure
that
about
was the genesis of the debate. But I want to comment on one thing. about the one-man syndrome, because you said it might affect NRM. One thing I know, and I want to categorically state, is that we love our national chairman. He's he's full of wisdom. He started NRM and has not seen it grow. There's no doubt that we love it. But against that background, I like to emphasize that he himself has emphasized the strengthening of institutions. Our constitution is very strong. You can't go against it. We respect it. Central Executive Committee of the party is a very strong body. It functions. We call our NEC and we call our national conference, which is very expensive in Nambole. But we do that because we know we cannot do without it if we are to be law abiding. So I want you to juxtapose the one-person syndrome vis-a-vis the fact that that one person that you're saying is much a believer in institutions and processes within the party. So we don't dispense of him, but we love our processes.
Can I interject on that one briefly?
Can you allow?
Yeah, thank you very much. If NRM is mighty as you are describing, why couldn't you allow the Right Honorable Mama Mbavas to compete for the flag in 2016? Because Dr. Tango Doi received the call when Mbavas went to pick the forms that don't allow him. Tango Doi gave Mbavas forms in defiance, but later Mbavas was not allowed to compete for the flag. How strong is it?
You're mixing hearsay with the truth. But the processes that led to...
Was that a hearsay?
Hearsay. The processes that led to what we call...
the
processes that led to what we call... So you see, the constitution in the party is... Our constitution is that there are stages you go through to be vetted, to be nominated a candidate. SEC, NEC, and SEC.
So that's the first
So you
process.
go through that. Now, in our case, you remember the debate kicked off from Chankwan through Anita. But eventually it went through.
What an example. Yes, okay.
Yes, it did. I mean...
Oh, yeah, we saw her kneeling. Yes, that's right. Yes.
The debate, but that was the initial debate. But it still went through the processes where the Constitution demands that for you to be fronted to Nambole, to National Conference, you must have passed through this. But I don't know whether you have it in the Congress. So in other words,
a very Congress system.
In other words, nobody walks to Nambole, and this is agreed in the Constitution. So
he was working to pick the forms to express his
but
interest.
it did not pass through the other procedures I was saying. I wish I had the Constitution.
So do you need to go through those processes
Yes,
before you apply?
Before you get the form.
The form.
Yes. Otherwise, you'd be an independent candidate in the party. That is what the Constitution provides. So that is how it looked like an apparent contradiction. But even Mbavas knew it. He knew that that is what
but
the
you
Constitution
were there
provides.
when he picked the forms.
Me?
Were you there?
I was not there.
Okay, but you saw.
But I was not there. So but even when if he wanted to pick the form, he was picking against the constitutional provision, which is wrong.
Okay, so our time is fast spent. Just lastly, as we speak about FDC, just retired major, do you think Kizza Besigye's perhaps maybe return to maybe the party leadership would try to resolve this mess? Just your opinion.
Well, in my opinion, but normally in my culture, I wouldn't like to really dwell into the house of my neighbor. But
when it's okay.
what I would want is, or what I wish them to be, whether Besigye or not, I want them to be a decent political party that we can listen to them.
Like the NRM.
Yeah, because you see, if you are in power like we are, and we intend to be, if you don't have a credible political party out there which talks sense, you know, there were sometimes in parliament where you had some sensible opposition who had self-declared opposition, who would talk and government would pick a pen to write. Of course, you see, for example, late Dr. Kulipak, he would talk and is the one who argued against the abolition of graduated tax. Meaning, therefore, that in a democracy, if you have sensible voices, it is good for you, even because for us, we have undoubted majority. So that one is a settled matter. But I'm also mindful to have small as they are, like the UPC, to be organized, and so that we hear the voice of
organized
reason
voices.
from them. So whether Besigye comes or not, we wish them well, because we want to hear voice of reason coming from Najina Nakuru. So that when they talk, we pick a pen and we write.
And right. Thank you. Fantastic. So, Joseph, your last words in just 30 seconds as we move towards retired major. Just your last words. Our time is.
I really hope that Mr. Museveni's alleged recent discovery that NRA rigs elections and uses public resources and uses public institutions, including the army and the police, and that civil servants and public servants rig on behalf of NRA and they taunt people, and that public broadcasters like Radio Uganda and Uganda Television favor NRA, and in many cases they don't give access to alternative views, and yet public broadcasters actually during elections, generally, they should be giving equal time to all political parties, or at least the top leading political parties. In this case, maybe up to 4 political parties should be having equal share of time, including covering their routine day-to-day news. But during election time, that they should be having equal space. That all those happen, and that therefore, following Oyam and Bukedia, that we do not have any future situation in which NRA taunts Ugandans, and that we believe, Comrade Awich, that they treasure the fact that you need alternative views and sensible alternative views. And those alternative views will only prevail if we allow young guys like yourselves and the young camera lady and others and the youth who, as I understand it, favorite observers and watchers of this program, that they learn from us and then they go ahead and grow to become leaders, and that in many cases they have gain interest to get involved in competitive politics, because they know, particularly for the young women who don't like violence, war, and abuses, that they will go for competitive politics, but it will not infringe on the privacy, their livelihoods, possibly their relationships. So if NRA is able to do that and commit themselves, it would be very, very good. So let's wait and watch. But whatever happens, in the burden responsibility lies with Uganda, with Uganda's main opposition political parties. That our leaders should be able to review, as I said before, we should review our positions, become selfless for once, and ensure that we focus on cultures of democracy, internal democracy, leadership, respect of institutions and systems, and make sure that while that happens, that we're able to have Uganda in which there's a new democracy and a possible democracy in the future. Of course, NRA is not a democracy.
Sarah, your last words.
The process is as good as its outcomes. If President Museveni's leadership, now going into 38 years, is 37 in power, can only produce competitors as disorganized as the citizens are seeing, of course with his hand dangled everywhere. At the end of the day, history will judge that that's how confused his leadership was. I know that he does not care about the legacy so much, but history will be written. President Museveni, is this the history you want to be written about your leadership, that you only survived by destroying your competitors using taxpayers' money? I hope not.
Retired Major, your last words.
My last word is that political parties have their challenges. Even us in NRM, we could have challenges in the internal discussion, but I'd like to assure Ugandans that if the other party are disorganized and they don't offer alternatives, please, we are here. You are welcome. This is your party. NRM is your party. It is mass-based. You leave the leaders in the other party to sort out their issues. Come to us in NRM, and we move the country forward.
Thank you. The choice is yours as a Ugandan and as a viewer, of course, to choose which side you want to belong to. Thank you very much, retired Major. Thank you, Doctor and Congressman, for your time.
Pleasure.
And of course, to the viewers, thank you for making a date with us this Friday afternoon. And that is just it. Until next week, same time, see you. Bye-bye.